Is it a jungle in there? Welcome to Decorating Tips and Tricks. I'm Anita Joyce with Kelly Wilkness, and this is episode 329, Decorating with Houseplants. And the show notes for today's episode can be found at decoratingtipsandtricks.com/329. And I know we both love plants in the house.
It's so hot right now. It's so funny to think of like houseplants are hot because it's like it's a house plant.
Hot popular or hot like the temperature is very warm?
I mean, it's popular.
Oh, I thought because I was thinking, yeah, it's kind of warm right now too.
yeah. So I'm sure it is getting hot by you. No, houseplants are very hot now, but I think it's funny, like a houseplant, like how can a houseplant be hot? But it is. It's a very hot trend.
They're very popular. I hope it doesn't go to their heads. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes, exactly. But trend or not, I mean, the houseplants have been around for forever, as they should be, because they do so much for your decor. They breathe life into your decor, literally and figuratively. Definitely improve your air quality, even in small amounts, in small plants. They fill awkward spaces. They can add height to a room, and they're fairly inexpensive. So there's absolutely no reason why you should hesitate to decorate with houseplants. Some people tell me, well, I don't have a green thumb, but I don't believe in green thumbs and I don't believe in brown thumbs.
It's called watering the plant, which I sometimes forget to do.
Yes. I mean, everybody forgets to do that. Or you come back from vacation and you're like, oh, well, that's too bad. But you know what? If it was an $8.99 plant, it's not the worst thing in the whole world if it passes on. So that shouldn't hold you back. So don't feel like you need to be a master gardener to be able to have a few houseplants, even a large houseplant, because it doesn't really matter if they're big or small. The only difference is you might have paid a little bit more for the big one. You all can do it. There are tips. There's also a list that we're going to run through, and then I'll put into the show notes of houseplants that, I mean, it's probably harder to kill than to keep alive. So
that's what we need.
Yeah. So if you're worried, then, stay within the confines of that list and you're going to be fine.
Yeah. And, I think of people like my mom. My mom didn't want a pet in the house, and she sure as heck didn't want any plants in the house that she was going to have to water.
That seems so surprising to me because she's an artist. And I like, I just artists and flowers and plants, they just all seem to go together.
Well, yeah, but my mom,
she's an enigma wrapped in a riddle, your mother. I like her very much, but
No, she's lovely. No, I love my mom, but I think she was very overwhelmed with taking care of the kids, and not that we were wild or anything, but working. She worked full time and was a mom and all this stuff. And honestly, I think it was just a little bit much for her, and maybe because she was so artsy, it just didn't quite.
The last thing you needed was a fern to need something else from you.
Well, I guess because God forbid somebody gave her a plant because it wasn't going to live. No, because, and she would just, I don't even know. She just was not, it was not going to happen. I think she would just give them away because she knew. I think it just causes,
better than letting them just die. Yes. Give them to somebody else.
It caused her stress. So if the idea of plants causes you severe stress, go back and listen to our faux plant.
Yeah.
episode.
There you go. Or the 328 other ones. We'll keep you busy.
Yeah. But you know what? But even if you're anti-real plant in the house, give this a listen, because I think we're going to have some tips for you and some plant ideas that may be easier than you think.
Well, on that note, let's dive right in. I love having plants in the house. I didn't for a while because we were under severe construction conditions. So, there was no way we were going to be able to worry about a plant at that time. But then when everything started to come together, I started to add plants back in. And I am now at, kind of probably the highest number of houseplants that I've had in a long time. And I am enjoying them so much. And so I encourage you to add one or two, do it slow if you're not sure. But you can incorporate them in so many beautiful ways, and they do add so much to your spaces. So, and think out of the pot, out of the container, if you will, as far as how you're going to display them. Like right now I have this mini palm. So it's really pretty. It's got a lot of different, it's not just one, trunk. It has many little trunks, and it's a little mini palm, and it's in a champagne bucket, and it looks so pretty in there. And I put some moss around it, for the look, and also to keep the moisture level up. And it's very charming. How about a shelf above a door? I would put a plant up there that I didn't have to water that often. Maybe you're going to put some cactuses up there or something like that. But that's kind of a really cool place to fill in, an unexpected place to add any kind of decor, but particularly some plants.
Can I go back to the moss for a second?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Because I think you just glossed over that, when I think that's a really key thing to think about. For one thing, it does keep the moisture in, but also it just makes the plant look neater, prettier. Mm-hmm. So this is something you can go buy easily somewhere and just keep it on hand. And as you're potting your plants, just put that on there. And I think that's just such a lovely addition. Don't overlook that. I think it can really add a lot of beauty to your potted plant.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I did gloss over that. So I'm glad we got back to it. There are decorating with houseplants. Okay, so sometimes you think about houseplants, and then you think of that person that maybe you knew, or in your neighborhood, or years ago, maybe that had just a lot, like too many houseplants. It's like having like too many of anything, maybe sometimes not a great thing, and that pots were mismatched, and, maybe the plants needed to be trimmed. Maybe they were the kind that kind of wander and get viney, and they got too leggy, and it just kind of looked messy, right? And you could see the dirt. And,
yeah.
Yeah. And that's not decorating with houseplants. That's just sort of like collecting houseplants, right?
And I think people that are anti-houseplants, that's what they think of.
Right. So, that's what we're talking about. I mean, we even toyed with using the term decorating well with houseplants, but then we thought, well, that would make sound like, it was like healthy living or something like that, which, it sort of is if you add a plant. But there's a way to decorate with houseplants, and there's a way not to. So what I just described is kind of the way not to. You don't want to have 20 houseplants lined up against the window in varying sizes, some on the ground, and they're all sort of tangled up, and that's
like
not
a
good
plant
look.
Hospital, or like that shelf. Oh, it's like the shelf at Lowe's where they're marked down.
Yeah,
because
there
they're halfway dead. You don't want it to look like that,
right? But you know what? You don't pass those up because you can revive them, but that's a different episode. But hey, that is so right. So you don't want it to look like that. So yes, you want to have you don't need to have 15 of them. You have one or two, or strategically placed throughout your house, in the pretty things like the champagne bucket, like, a beautiful pot in your accent color that you purchase. Definitely get the bag of Spanish moss, or the bag of green moss, or even a bag of pebbles. It doesn't really, people think, oh, just pebbles with succulent stuff. You could put pebbles on the top of any plant, any dirt with the plant. It's still going to get the moisture, and make it beautiful.
Well, what I want to add in what you've already said, I'm kind of just pulling out another key thing that you said. You said you put that one plant in a champagne bucket. Mm-hmm. So don't feel like you have to stick with pots that were specifically made for plants. And I particularly are not crazy about those plastic ones that are really kind of more for outside. I really want the pots to be as beautiful as everything else in my house. So I think it makes sense to really spend your time finding a beautiful pot. And of course, it's nice to have the kind that have the hole in the bottoms. But even if you can't, you can always, I know I put plants in champagne buckets, but I keep them in the plastic containers. And then I can pull them out to water them, and then I pop them back in.
Right. And that's the way to do it. And that's really the way to do it for, I put plants in tureens. I put plants in different kind of ceramic pieces. And you really don't want to put dirt in your ceramics, even if you've got it for $1 or something at a yard sale. I mean, why ruin the inside? It will change the inside if you've got dirt in there over a period of time. So keep it in the nursery plastic pot that it came in. You may want to, at some point, if the plant's doing well, and I'm sure it will be because you're all going to be great stewards of your plants, you may want to increase the size of the plastic container, put some more potting soil in it so the plant can grow. It's not great if the plants get root bound in there, but keep them in there. It's a great and easy way to water. So then on, watering day, you just take your plants, whatever you have, 3 or 5 throughout the house, put them in your sink. You do the sprayer if you have it, spray them all off. It kind of gets the dust off their leaves. They like that too, a little shower, and then give them a really good watering. And let them just sit there. Do it like, maybe in between meals or when there's not going to be people coming and using the sink too much. And just let them sit in there for an hour or so and let them really drain. This is particularly true of orchids. They don't like to have their feet wet. So you don't want to just dump some water in there and then they're sitting in the decorative pot, in an inch of water. They hate that. And most plants don't like that.
Yeah, I think that's really, really bad.
That's really bad.
But one of the worst things you can do. But if you do put your plant in a container, if you do end up putting it in a container that does, and it's not in its little plastic sleeve or whatever you want to call it, the kind that it came in, then you definitely want to put the broken up pieces of pottery in the bottom or rocks or something so that when you water them, the water can drain out. But in that particular case, you can still overwater. So I think you have to be more careful with that. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind if you're putting it in a pot with no drain hole on the bottom.
Yeah. And so many pretty pots or things that you're repurposing as pot obviously won't have a hole in the bottom. So yeah, so that it is a little drawback and you really should think about it, particularly if you're spending, more than $25, $50, if you're getting a tall plant, maybe even over $100 on a plant, you really want to put that type of plant in a container that has some drainage. So lots of times you can buy one that actually has a pretty saucer attached to it. So it's made for a plant. Mm-hmm. So, if your plant is more than just like a little $6.99 house plant or $12.99 or something like that, if it's a plant that you're going to spend a little bit of money on and you're hoping to keep for a while, I would suggest you get the kind with the real drainage holes.
True.
And with the I would call it like a self dish. So it's the same color. So it looks nice together. Crate and Barrel had some really nice ones. I just got for a client of mine in a whole array of colors, and they had the saucer on the bottom, and they were very well priced. Because it's really bad for the plant not to have the proper drainage. And that's going to make it much harder for you to take care of it because you don't know what's going on down there. The top inch might seem like it's dry, but it might be really wet. That's what happened to the ficus in my bedroom. My darling daughter was helping me out, and I don't know how many times she went and filled up I had like a plastic container that I would water it with. She must have filled it up like 12 times. The thing, like 6 months later, the thing was still so well hydrated that it died. It was overloved. Yeah. Oh. When I dragged it out of my bedroom and down the stairs and out to the front lawn and I pulled it out of the pot, it was soaking wet in there.
Oh.
Yeah. It's too much love.
It was like, I was trying to tell you I was over here screaming and you didn't know.
But I was drowning.
I know. Yeah. That's sad.
Now, if you want to group plants together, which is a great look, particularly if you've got sort of an awkward corner or you just need to fill space or you just want to have some extra green. We do them in varying heights and varying shapes. So maybe one that has a trunk and as more of a tree shape, like more of a topiary shape where you've got trunk and then greens. And then maybe a fuller one, like an umbrella plant is a really great one to have. That's a nice full round one. And then maybe something kind of interesting and spiky. Even aloes do really nicely inside. And they're pretty happy anywhere. They don't even have to be in bright sun. And in that instance, I would either get the pots to match in a similar color or the same color, or I would do and have them all be the same texture, or I would do different textures but keep in the same color family.
Oh, yeah. And I just love having ivies in the house too. And they're pretty hardy. They can usually handle the indoor light situation. I think so many plants, they just aren't going to get enough light inside. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind. And I know you're going to be talking about which specific plants to buy, but some plants are just not going to do well inside. So I think that one of the biggest tricks is to find a plant, to buy a plant specifically that is going to be happy with a little lower light levels and, a little drier air than the outside, or a little, just.
Yeah. It's like, why fight it? I mean, it's the plant's nature. You really don't want to have, it's like in my outdoor garden, like I would love to have certain plants that are beautiful on the East Coast that I used to have, but I'm just not going to have them here. So the first year I was here, first couple of years, I had hydrangeas in pots, but I would have to like run around and move them around.
Oh, wow. They
wanted sun, but then it was too much sun and then they'd get burned. And I can't be a slave to my hydrangeas. I'll just have to buy them cut and be happy with them. And the same goes for inside. Stick with plants that really are happy in low light. And there's a lot of beautiful ones that are, and we'll talk about those. I had a thought the other day, and I think I might do it in my house. If you don't have a very wide window sill, and maybe you don't have room for a big plant to be on the floor behind a sofa or behind, in my case, the love seat in the dining room. Mm-hmm. I was thinking, I don't know, I'm just like saying this out loud for the first time, so I'm not sure if it's a complete thought or not, but I was thinking of having like
what a great place to put that out there on the podcast.
Exactly. You want to know what else I dreamt about? Yeah, just a wooden shelf. Like you could make one, or you could just buy one of those wooden shelves that they have at, Home Depot or something like that with the bracket, or just get a piece of wood, like a 2x6 or something like that, and 2 pretty corbels. You could make a shelf that is right under your window ledge. And so extend it, right? So make it wider where you could put potted plants on it. And then if you had your sofa, I mean, it could be without a piece of furniture in front of it, but if you had your sofa or your love seat, then in front of it, it would be like a console table almost behind them. And this is where the plants would be really happy because they'd be in a window, and then they would look pretty and soften the line of your sofa or what have you, because you would see them behind it. Rather than having a big giant plant in a big giant pot on the floor behind it, and then you have to have the furniture pulled out more. This way you could just have maybe 3 plants in 3 matching pots. I thought that would be really lovely.
I think that's a great idea.
Because where I'm thinking about is, I don't know if you guys have seen my dining room. I could put a link to it so you could see where I'm talking about. There's a bump out in my dining room, which is kind of weird that it's there, but it's there. And so we put this love seat in there, and turns out people like to sit there. But it feels like it needs something over there. I can't do more curtains or drapes because it's just awkward. And so I felt like it would be nice to have some green over there. So that's when I came up with that idea. So, I mean, you could do that anywhere if you wanted some plants on a window ledge, which is super charming anyway, but you didn't have a wide enough ledge, just stick a shelf under it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a great idea. I like that.
Phew.
I know.
Well, if I got halfway in and I couldn't think of the rest of it, that would have been
bad. Well, and then, another tip I have that I use here, because, I do forget to water things, is if it's a plant that likes moisture, is I keep it under the cloche. And that's what cloches were meant for in the first place, was to protect seedlings during difficult weather. So they were kind of made a little terrarium for the little seedlings. And so they kind of controlled the temperature and the moisture level. So a cloche will kind of keep that moisture in there, and it won't need to be watered as much, but it's not going to work for something that wants dry temperatures like a succulent.
Good.
I shouldn't say temperatures, drier air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about filling up your fireplace? Either if it doesn't work or for the summer months, ferns are great in there. And, as long as it's not, don't shove them all the way into the back. You want to see them anyway. So you kind of have them, and make sure you just don't want to put like one little pot and then you see all the black or the brick or whatever around it. You want to fill it up. So if that means getting a bigger plant, or maybe even better, maybe you get like a crate that has a taller sides or something like that. And you put 3 ferns in there and let them just sort of like have the fronds, overlapping each other. So it really looks full and lush and like it's almost like it's spilling out of it.
I love that idea.
And then if it's doing that, if it's not shoved all the way in the back, then it's going to most likely, unless you live in a really, really dark house, it's probably going to catch some light somewhere.
Well, and another thing to think about too is just because you bought the plants and there's just one plant per pot, you can redo them in your new pot and put, 2 or 3 plants together to make it look fuller, or put 3 different plants, like 3 different ferns together. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to just take the plants as they come and use them like that. You can, redo them, repot them. And, a lot of times, I do repot them to give them a little more room to grow. Or sometimes I just wait and think, well, if it's alive in 6 months, then I'll worry about repotting the thing to have a little more room for it.
It's a probationary period. And if you can hack it here, then you get a new pot.
You may not be needing growth room.
You're out of here. Exactly.
Well, it's not the poor plant's
I'm not giving you more square footage until you prove that you can live.
You can survive my treatment. That's really good.
Yeah, or lack thereof. But hey, I think what you just said sort of belies this whole can't take care of plants. Mixing them, putting 2 or 3 together, like that's kind of advanced plant care. And I highly agree with you. I mean, that is a great way to fill it in. I think that's a great way if you have, say you get a tall-ish plant, but it's kind of still a little gangly. It was the $49 plant rather than the $129 plant. So it's still, it's going to grow, it really is going to grow. So then maybe underplant that. Like you would underplant outside, that with some ferns, and that'll make that trunk not look so gangly.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, and I love the little trees kind of inside the house too. Mm-hmm. I think that's a beautiful look.
Yeah.
But I mean, you definitely have to make sure it's something that's going to do okay indoors.
Don't you just love a great recommendation from a friend? Well, we're delighted to be recommending these companies and their wonderful products to you today. And let them know your friends at DTT sent you. Pesto pork chops over Parmesan polenta. Not that easy to say, but oh so easy to make with Green Chef. Green Chef is the #1 meal kit company for eating well, and we have such a great deal for you. You're going to save $250. Listen on for the details on that. Green Chef makes eating well easy for any lifestyle, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat more balanced meals. We're getting into the busy holiday season, so it's a perfect time to have Green Chef help you out. Let Green Chef take the work out of eating clean this holiday season with their chef-crafted, nutritionist-approved recipes featuring fresh ingredients and nothing artificial. And you know what? You don't have to lose track of your healthy eating habits during the holidays. Every Green Chef customer gets a free session with their registered dietitians who will walk you through how to make clean eating work for you. So sign up for your free session and start on the road towards better health today. And that deal I want to tell you about, visit greenchef.com/DTT250 and use the code DTT250 for $250 off your order. So that's greenchef.com/DTT250 and use the code DTT250 for $250 off your order. BritBox just keeps getting better. The new Archie is amazing. And it's not the comics. It's about Cary Grant. Archie is the brand new limited series starring Jason Isaacs as Archie Leach, the man who became Cary Grant. From the award-winning screenwriter of Philomena, Archie tells Grant's born in Britain, made in Hollywood story, the dramatic grit to glamour transformation that led him to become one of the most famous people in the world. You are going to absolutely love the acting, but also the styling, the outfits, the scenery. It's the first time his story has been told in collaboration with his daughter Jennifer Grant and ex-wife Diane Cannon. The performances from Jason Isaacs and the rest of the cast are amazing. and it's only available on BritBox. So sign up for BritBox today to stream Archie and other fan favorites from any device. And we have a special limited time offer for our U.S. and Canadian listeners. Get 50% off. Yes, that's 50% off your first month when you sign up for a monthly plan. But only if you go to BritBox.com and use our promotion code DTT at checkout. You're going to love Archie. So head over right now and get 50% off your first month of BritBox. Use the promotion code DTT at BritBox.com. You know what's fun to put little small plants in? Kind of cast off or extra or vintage, thrifted pans, like bunt pans, or I have a couple of old little loaf pans.
Oh, I have a ton of those.
Yeah. And in the past, I've put little plants in them, and it's just very charming, and it's a great use of them. And now, again, you're not going to get any drainage in there. So you're probably going to, I've done succulents mostly where they really don't need to be soaked. If you had ferns and things like that need a little bit more water, then maybe stay away from that, but it's kind of cool. How about putting them up on a pedestal, that you can buy pedestals, or maybe you have one. And that is a great way to really showcase a lovely plant. I like the idea of one, like a fern that's kind of like draping, it's like full and it's draping over. I think that's a pretty way to display those.
The Victorians loved the plant stands. There's so many from that era. And I actually have some antiques, and yeah, I really wasn't really sure what to do with them. I mean, really the best thing I think to put on them is to put plants on them.
Yeah, because they're usually too small for you to put, and too tall then for a side table and stuff like that. Plants can also serve as draperies. You know how Anita and I are, often say, just take the drapes off. Like, it looks better without them. Let as much natural light in. Anyway, but if you need some privacy and you want to forego shades or drapes, plants, large plants, maybe 2 or 3 of them, could be, a cost saving, certainly from having custom drapes or shades done. And they'll give you the green, a really nice way to block a view you don't want to see, or for people from seeing into your house.
I think that's a great thing to do if you want to block a view, because so many of us live in the middle of a city, and maybe there's just a fence right there, or another house, or something else that you just really don't want to see, but you don't want to close the blinds and then make the room dark. So that's a great way to do it, is just to put a plant there. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Another thought is put a mirror behind your plant. And it doesn't even have to be one of these giant floor plants. But if you put a mirror behind any plant, it's going to double it. And it's going to, visually in the room, it's going to feel like there's more of it. But if you do it with a large mirror and a large plant, that can be really, really effective.
Oh, that's a great idea. I hadn't thought of that one.
And I got one more. How about pairing plants with botanical prints? So kind of, go in that whole way and just, giving that whole feel, which is a really fresh look, particularly now that we're getting into, for most of us, and into the summer months. I know we have listeners in down under and various places where, it's not going to be spring and summer, but that is a really nice look.
Oh yeah. I think that's a great way to go.
So yeah, let me shoot you out this list now. I'll just do it quick, but I'll put it in the show notes as well. Some easy to grow, hard to kill plants. Okay. The peace lily. I love the peace lily. Spider plant. I remember those from my youth. The cast iron plant. You can imagine,
yes,
that'd be tough. The philodendrons, and there are several other plants that kind of look like philodendrons, but they're super easy, glossy green leaves. The English ivy, really nice.
Scheffalera, do you have that on there?
I don't. See, she knows plants. That's not on my list, but yeah.
Okay.
Shamrock plant. And then the ZZ plant, which is very upright. And then on the bottom of the list, very easy to care for. I don't care for it, though. The snake plant, it reminds me of something that would be in a dentist's office. Not to knock any dentists, but I'm saying that like that quintessential, congratulations on opening your office, like a ribbon on it. We've all seen those plants, right? So that's the snake plant. But I think the snake plant on its own, I wouldn't care for. But if you mix the snake plant, it's very upright and spiky. If you mix it with some other plants, it might be fine.
Well, and I have a bromeliad I have kept alive for several months now.
Very nice. Good for you. So it can't be that hard if she's keeping it alive, you guys. So,
well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But, so these are and these also will tolerate very low light for the most part. So, these are kind of like plant 101. Indoor plant 101.
Yeah, but I think the other thing too is what happens, I think, with people is they bring the plant home, it's not doing well, and the problem is not knowing, is the plant getting too much water or not enough? And if you don't know how to read the signs, that's when I think you get into trouble, because you don't realize you've already overwatered the plant and that's the real problem. And then you keep doing it, because sometimes the plant's drooping because it doesn't have enough water, and sometimes it's drooping because it's got too much. So I think part of it is picking it up and making sure that the roots aren't wet. If it's got a drain hole, make sure it's sitting out and draining all the way. Check it. If it's in a pot that doesn't have a hole, make sure like Kelly's plant, that it hasn't, had too much water poured in there. Yeah. I think that's it. If it's got brown leaves, then then obviously not enough water. What else would you say about that, Kelly?
Well, yellow usually indicates too much water, but it could be some other thing. What I would do is when you buy your plant, they have those little tags. Most of the time, they don't tell you much of anything, but it will at least give you the name of the plant. It will probably give you general terms how much light it needs. Take a few minutes and look the plant up on the internet, and then try to keep somewhat of a schedule when you water it. If it's very low water, then every 2 weeks. If it's, sort of mid-range, then maybe once a week. It also depends where you have it. If you do have it in a really sunny spot, then it's going to need a little bit more water. So it's really, it's a common sense. It's stick your finger in the dirt, see how it feels in there. And then I've mentioned this product before. I think I did it on one of my crushes, but there's that old-timey plant food called Thrive. Remember, I think I talked about that one.
It won that. We used
the
to use
World's
that
Fair in 1942 or something like that. It's awesome. You just it's concentrate. You just get a little tiny bit of that. It comes in a little tiny bottle, and then you don't have to do that every time, but maybe every month or so, every 2 months, you give it pour a little bit of that into its water, and I think you'd be fine. And orchids we could throw on here too. They're pretty easy care. They just are not going to last and bloom all that long, but you'll have them for a period of time, and you can really, they're obviously so beautiful.
Right. And some of these plants, the leaves don't like getting wet. Mm-hmm. So you have to water them underneath the leaves. And so, like the African violets, they don't like, the stems don't like getting wet. So I know my mother-in-law loved African violets. So she had a ton of them.
Yeah, they were really popular in like the 70s too. I remember my grandma.
Well, way past the 70s. But once she found a thing she liked, she stuck with it.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's
good to be loyal.
Yeah, she was very loyal to her African violets. That's right.
Well, I have my crush today is also a plant, but it's an outdoor plant. Lady Banks roses. I had the opportunity to get a couple of those from Monrovia probably 2 years ago. And they bloomed a little bit, but didn't do too much. Well, this year, plants just have to, just to get settled in like everybody else. And true. I've been working on my soil and all of that. They were always beautiful and healthy, but the blooms were not so terrific. But beautiful, healthy plants, they were growing this year. And maybe because we had so much rain here in Southern California, they are spectacular. So Lady Banks roses are, they're like more of like a rambler rose. They have very small, maybe inch to inch and a half across white blooms that come in little clusters. And it's not like a traditional rose with the petals. It's like a little frillier. Absolutely charming. So you could, like sort of,
is it more like an heirloom rose, would you say?
No, no.
Okay.
So you can, they're like tiny sprays almost. And they'd be great in arrangements if you cut them and they kind of like trailed at the bottom of the arrangement, sort of like softening the lines and stuff. But they're so pretty. I have one trained over a fence and it's just going. And I just keep putting little screws in my fence and like, tying it on, and it just grows another foot or so. And the other one on the side of my house is absolutely out of control. It's so pretty, and I probably waited too long to try to tame that in, and now it's blooming. So I'm just letting it go crazy right now, but really beautiful. Particularly if anybody has a little fear of trying roses. This is a small, tiny little rose. I mean, a person may not even, a person who didn't know the name of it may not even think it was a rose in a sense. So look at it online, but that's what it's called. Lady Banks Rose, and from Monrovia. Green Chef is a delicious delight any time of year, but especially during the holidays. What a wonderful vision to behold as the Green Chef boxes on your doorstep. Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating well. And it makes eating well so easy with plans to fit every lifestyle, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat a more balanced diet. So let Green Chef take the work out of eating clean this holiday season. And if you've got guests coming, shop Green Bundles. They're now available at the Green Market. It's your one-stop shop for nutritious grab-and-go breakfasts, including vegan options, brunch kits, wholesome lunches, ready-to-eat snacks, veggie sides, and more. You can feel your best this December and do your best with Green Chef because they offset 100% of the delivery emissions as well as 100% of the plastic in every box. Go to greenchef.com/60DTT and use the code 60DTT and get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. greenchef.com/60DTT and use the code 60DTT to get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. Go ahead, clean out your closet, then head straight to Quince. I love every item Quince offers, from wardrobe to decor, and I can really recommend their Ultra Stretch Super Wide Leg Pant at $49.90. The price is unbeatable, and the look is so flattering. It keeps you in on top and flares out of the bottom. Everything feels right with Quince. The price, the quality, and the sustainability. Quince offers a range of luxury wardrobe and home goods at prices within reach. And like Quince's clothing, their home goods are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, along with premium fabrics and finishes. Once you've cleaned out your closet and refreshed with Quince, you can also add something to your home decor. So give your wardrobe and your home the refresh it needs with Quince. Go to quince.com/DTT to get free shipping and 365-day returns on your next order. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/DTT for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DTT. And let me know how you love those pants.
Oh, well, that sounds so wonderful. And now mine's so pedestrian. But I just, because it's a little handheld vacuum.
But I've already done a vacuum. I've done vacuums. No shame in a vacuum.
All right. Well, it's a little handheld cordless vacuum. The thing I liked about it is that it's for picking up pet hair and kind of hard to pick up things. But I got it to clean out. I'm turning over a new leaf. I'm going to start keeping my car clean.
Oh.
So, yeah. So anyway, so I got this for the car, but also it could be used for furniture, that sort of thing. But it's not a floor vac. So this is a handheld, but it's a Bissell. I'll include a link to it. But this one's specifically for dog hair too. And because we have a collie, I thought, I think this is going to come in handy. Oh, yeah,
that's for you. Okay, good ones. So our listener question today is from Trisha M. And Trisha wants to know, what magazines do we read? She was sad that Romantic Homes went under and was wondering if we had any suggestions for magazines that we enjoy.
Well, I wanted to mention two favorites of mine that are French magazines. That's my kind of first love is French style. And there's two that I love to read. One is, well, actually, I guess more than that, but there's Country French magazine. That's a Meredith publication. And there's French Style magazine. And then there's the Fifi's one, which is, I think, Country French Style. So those three. And they're all beautiful magazines. If you're interested in French design, I think you would like those. If not, then they're probably not for you.
Oh, yeah, they're all very lovely, though. I think no matter what design you like, it's just so pretty. Okay, so what I read, Trisha, is House Beautiful, have for years.
Beautiful.
I'm really enjoying Veranda now. I got into it maybe last year, and I think it's just a really well written magazine as well.
Very high quality.
Yes, and the photos. I used to stay away from magazines that I felt like were almost a little too highbrow. Like, oh, my house is never going to look like that. But here's the thing. I think they tend to.
Veranda has some pretty high-end homes in there. So does House Beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want to see that because I'd never be able to get that, $12,000 coffee table, nor would I want a $12,000 coffee table. But I think that the articles are really well written. They do interesting profiles on the people whose homes that they go and take the pictures of. And it might make you think of a way to incorporate something you saw in a different way in your own home. It seems to be that it helps me push my envelope a little bit more than seeing what is in the more mid-range magazines. You know what I'm saying?
That's the way I feel. I like looking at a very high-end magazine because I'm with you. I'm not going to spend that kind of money on a coffee table or sofa, but to me, it's kind of like somebody who looks for counterfeit bills.
Money.
They've got to know the real thing, and then they can tell what's a forgery or a counterfeit. So if you want a high end look, then I think look at these high end magazines, and then that you'll know what that look is, and then it'll be easy to find things, because that's what I've done all along is I have looked and seen what the high-end look is, and then I've found generally a less expensive way to get pretty close to that look where it's really difficult to tell. So yeah, I think that's a great way to go.
Yeah. I've even picked up, I haven't purchased it and I don't subscribe to it, but I never really gave Architectural Digest a thought, but then somebody at my thrift store that I go to all the time donates them.
Oh, wow. So, there you go.
So I
so you're not paying $20 an issue for it. That's
no, they're $1. And they must come in pretty regularly. Someday I'm sure I'm going to walk in and see the person like handing over the bag, and then I can say thank you for that.
Thank you for spending $20, and then I get them for one.
Yeah, because I've really enjoyed them, whereas it's not something that if I saw it on the newsstand, I would necessarily be drawn to. Like, I scan the newsstand and I look for the ones, and every time you look, there's less and less.
Isn't that the truth? There's new ones all the time that I hear that are just going by the wayside, and it really is
a tough business.
Sad. I mean, I think we as bloggers, and it's not really the bloggers. Well, I should say, I mean, we as bloggers in a way kind of contributed to the demise of the magazines, but that was not a happy thing for any of us. All of us that are in the home decor field were crushed when the magazine started going under. But I think it's just Pinterest house. I mean, it's kind of same thing happened with the music industry. Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?
Right.
And so it's kind of a sad thing because I
but
love
that being
holding
said,
a magazine.
There's so many people that still feel like holding it in their hand is really nice. And I love that. Like I have a little stack.
Well, I do too.
Oh, I can't wait to look. Yeah.
I still think there's value in magazines. I'm just saying I don't feel like everyone still appreciates them, but I wish they would.
They can't. They can't survive because also, the advertising is not even subscription. I'm sure that most magazines make their bulk of their money from advertising.
From the advertising, yes.
Right? So if the advertising moved on, then that's where the problem is. Subscription, I think it's kind of like, if you have a benefit or an event, like the ticket price is only going to cover so much, but it's really, the auction that's going to make the money kind of thing. I think that's kind of like with the subscription to the ads is kind of the same thing for the magazines. So that is too bad, but there's all these other things that have opened up to us. But great question, Trisha. Thank you for asking. I hope that put you in, gave you some new things to think about. And I was thinking, Anita, maybe we should do an episode about magazines that are left, because I bet there's a bunch that we don't know about that we would enjoy too.
That would be fun to do some research on that.
Yeah.
It would force me to go sit at Barnes and Noble and look them
Wouldn't that
all
be
over.
awful? I know.
Oh,
right?
it'd be terrible.
Terrible. Okay, we're willing to do it for you. You let us know if you'd like to hear any of that.
Oh, my goodness.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Now go check your plants. If you have any, go stick your finger in and make sure that they don't need a water, or give them a little spritz or something. And remember, we are here to inspire you to create a beautiful home. Until next time. I want to remind you that we are available for design consults. We take on your design dilemmas, questions, renovations, any project you want to talk about, any room, any space. We are here for you. And we really do enjoy doing these. And I think we've helped people a lot. So if you want to sign up for a consult, head to the link in the show notes. It's decoratingtipsandtricks.com/consult. We hope to talk to you soon.